Today we're going to be talking about work team communication, and this is part one of a three-part lecture series. And so, first of all, what I would like to do is simply just look at the definition of a team. A team is defined as a group of individuals who work together to accomplish a common objective. Once again, that's a group of individuals who work together to accomplish a common objective. So they're gathered together for a reason. There is a purpose involved. What I'd next like you to think about is what are the pros and cons of working on a team? What are the pros and cons of working on a team? Well, I often hear back from students, and I personally have worked on many teams throughout my education, and we all pretty much agree that the pros of working on a team are that we bring a variety of talents and skills to the table. Some people are better at the creative work involved in a project. Other people are great at crunching numbers and coming up with the data, the charts, the graphs that would become a findings part of a project. Other people just love to think about recommendations and based on the findings what could be recommended. So what I'm describing would be an example of a formal business report where you're given a problem, you gather the data, you present findings, and then you come up with recommendations. So pros, once again, different talents and skills. Also another pro is that you can divide up the work. Instead of having to pass out 100 surveys all by yourself, if you have a group of 5, you can each take 20 and get so much more accomplished in a shorter period of time. Cons. Well, cons many times center on people not doing their fair share. Okay. Yes, people have different standards for their work, but you want to make sure that in a group you are doing your fair share and you are pulling your weight. I tell students, do your fair share and more. Okay, so cons also, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer in a group to reach a consensus. All right, to come to an agreement before you can move on. So sometimes it actually, even though we say, oh, you can get a lot more accomplished more quickly, that's a pro. A con can be sometimes it just takes longer to get something done because you are dealing with so many different opinions and coming to that consensus. Yet I have to say that when I have worked in groups, typically the project overall turns out much, much better than if I had done it on my own, simply because of all of the different talents and skills, and people thinking of things that I never would have thought of before that actually worked much better. So what is the ideal size for a work team? Well, research suggests that 5 people is the best number for a work team. Why? Well, fewer than 5 people, you don't have as many opinions and perspectives to consider, and that's a value to a group. But yet, more than 5 people, it becomes really tedious trying to reach a consensus when you have so many opinions to deal with. So 5 is considered the target number for a group. Now we're going to look at some variables of group team communication, and I want to start with conflict. First of all, when you think about conflict, when you hear that word, it definitely has a negative connotation for most people. You think of people arguing. And so I pose the question to you, can conflict be good? Well, actually, conflict can be good when it is about issues. That is productive conflict versus destructive conflict, which is about personalities. Okay, productive conflict occurs when, for instance, I walk around the classroom and I hear students grappling with a topic. They're trying to decide on a topic and they're throwing out different ideas. That I love to hear because that's productive conflict. they're disagreeing, but yet they're trying to come to an agreement. They're presenting their different perspectives. Destructive conflict occurs when you have personal attacks on another person, such as what looks like is happening in this picture to the right side, with the gentleman pointing and the lady putting up her hand, and even their facial expression looks like that could be destructive conflict or about personalities. So yes, conflict can be good, and it should happen in a group if it's about issues, and that is productive conflict. How then do you handle conflict effectively? And I pose to you a question. How would you handle it if a group or team member was always late to your group meetings? Okay, or if you're working online, if they just didn't post, okay, for the discussion boards, how would you handle it? But when they did, I want to add this, when they did arrive to the meetings, they were very, very creative. They had wonderful ideas. And when they posted online, you loved their ideas. How might you handle that person? Well, first thing you may want to do is simply approach them by pointing out the positive, followed by what can be improved upon. So you might start out by saying, you have wonderful ideas, you're so creative, but we miss out on those ideas when you don't post or when you show up late to a meeting. Also using I statements rather than using statements such as the whole group is really upset or we think when you're the only one present. It's better to own your own feelings. So I think that you have wonderful ideas, but I'm sad that we miss out on those ideas when you aren't at the meetings on time. Okay, so using those I statements, owning your feelings, is important to handling conflict. And you can use this, in interpersonal relationships as well. Conformity. This is defined as agreement with regard to ideas, rules, and principles. Conformity on some level is good and is necessary to move forward with a project. However, complete conformity, where everybody goes along, let's say, with one group member's ideas, can be problematic because nobody presents their differences of opinion. And that is called, you probably know this term or you've heard it before, it's too much cohesiveness, and it's called groupthink, where everybody goes along with one person and they don't present their differences of opinion. It's those differences of opinion that lead to a richer project. Consensus is defined as reaching a decision that best reflects the thinking of all team members. A consensus is necessary in order for a group to move forward, and that is what takes up so much time when you're working in a group or a team. And remember, this doesn't mean that it's your exact decision. It's a decision that all members can support. Maybe you had an idea, but Tom and Sally added in their views and you reached a consensus that maybe isn't exactly what you wanted to do, but you can agree with it enough to move forward. And that's the point you want to get to, where you can move forward at some point, but you have discussed the matter at hand. Team writing. In team writing, when you're assigned a group project or you have a longer report that you're writing as a group, initially you will assign tasks, break it up, divide that work up. Then you will meet regularly, whether that be online or in person, just to touch base to see where you are with your portion of the report. Drafting the document is when you put the entire document together, and the key here is you then need to have somebody that goes through and revises the draft and they read it in its entirety. Why? Because you want to make sure that it looks or sounds as if one person has written it. You don't want your paper to sound as if 5 different people wrote it. So you want to make sure that you have the same verb tenses throughout, that you have the same type of transitions, and that you have transitions, period. One section might have transitions and another section might not, if the person writing that section didn't put them in. So you definitely want to have at least one person, if not 2, read the entire report over to make sure it flows smoothly. Okay, ethics and work team communication. I've already alluded to this statement a little bit. Complaints of working in groups many times deal with group members not being your part, and I just truly encourage you to be an ethical group member. Do your share and more. You want to feel good about your final product and feel like you did your best to make the finished product the best. And next we'll move on to part 2 of this lecture series, and thank you so much.